Hi there, Michael Bovee with Consumer Recovery Network, and thanks for tuning in to our YouTube channel, DebtBytes. Today, I'm going to cover when you need to negotiate or come up with some kind of settlement with a debt buyer by the name of LVNV or Resurgent Capital, also Sherman Acquisitions. These are all one and the same for all intents and purposes as far as you're concerned when you're negotiating a deal. So they're a debt buyer. They pick up the legal rights to collect on a bill that you didn't pay. There are different types of debt buyers, and on this channel I've covered some of the largest in the nation. LVNV is pretty big. They're not like other debt buyers, the larger ones like PRA or Midland, where those guys buy up debt and then they use their own internal collection resources. Most of the debts that LVNV picks up, you can't necessarily call them and resolve the debt with them. You have to go and deal with the collection agencies that the purchaser, in this case LVNV, sends them out to, right? And those can be some of the biggest contingency collection agencies. And what I mean by contingency is that these debt collectors only get paid if they get you to pay, or they use a collection attorney. You could be negotiating an LVNV account with a law firm who hasn't sued yet, who has sued and there isn't a resolution to the case, or you could be dealing with a judgment already. There are also some acquisitions that LVNV's made, and I'm seeing less and less of these, but they bought up at one time one of the largest debt buyers by way of Arrow Financial Services. LVNV picked up a lot of that portfolio when Arrow went out of business. So you could be dealing with LVNV if you have an old Arrow judgment. That purchase happened long enough ago that you shouldn't be seeing that kind of debt on your credit report or running into collections post 7 years old or past statute of limitations. So when you're dealing with LVNV and you know that you're more than likely going to be dealing with an outside agency, much of the same things that I talk about on how to negotiate and settle with a debt collector are going to apply in this situation. Whether you're dealing with Chase, Citibank, Bank of America, or LVNV using those same debt collection agencies, really the approach is the same. Just because a debt buyer buys your debt for less than its face value does not necessarily mean that you're going to be able to settle a better outcome. Fact of the matter is, I'd prefer to negotiate a non-purchased Chase or B of A or Citibank debt and get a better outcome that way. Just again, debt buyers have targets just like any other debt owner, whether it's the creditor or not. So I tend to target 40% in these areas, but the older your debt is, the more it's reasonable or realistic to shoot for even better outcomes. For example, somebody who might live in a state with a 4-year statute of limitations, for example California, and many other states have that. Couple of them have 3-year statutes, but let's say 4. And it's been 5 years since you last made a payment on this debt to the original creditor or anybody. So that means it's legitimately past the statute of limitations for LVNV to sue you, but you have a goal and you need this resolved on your credit report because it's holding you back, or you have to know it will hold you back, from getting advantageous financing for a home or even be able to get a home loan, okay? So it's important to kind of pre-plan and try to resolve debts that you find you must before you even apply for those types of loans, because then you tip off the debt collector because they have real-time access to your credit that you have a goal. So if you're planning and you're being strategic, you can sometimes get a better outcome than 40% the older the debt is, as long as you haven't tipped off a debt collector to your goals. You're having an outcome that you're trying to reach, they hold out for better money. If you are dealing with a judgment debt, you have to know that sometimes getting resolution doesn't mean immediate updates to your credit report. It actually, if there's a judgment involved, it has to go through the court process, very formal. So when you settle a judgment, whether it's with LVNV or other types of collection agencies, you typically are going to see a several-week delay for the payment to clear, process, and then for them to file something with the court to update the court that the judgment is now paid, satisfied, no matter how much you paid for it, it's paid, satisfied. And then that has to get picked up by the credit reporting agencies. So there's a delay, sometimes 30, 60 days. If you're in a hurry to get something done after you get the negotiated settlement, after it's documented, after you have proof of payment, there are some ways you can use that as a way to expedite any kind of loan approval and things like that. And I bring this up because when you're dealing with older debt, when you're dealing with purchase debt, when you're dealing with debt buyers, it tends to be that you have some immediate needs. So pay attention to those time frames, those details. One last thing. When you're dealing with a debt collector, again, doesn't matter if you're dealing with resurgent LVNV debt or not, you don't have to get everything done in one phone call. So when you're reaching out to collectors, realize that sometimes it's better just to set the table and set some expectations and have that first conversation, kind of break the ice. And then sometimes your deal isn't going to get done until the subsequent third, fourth, maybe even fifth conversation with the collection agency. So patience is required. Post below about your situation, and I can share a little bit more depth once I know a little bit more about what you have going on, what your credit report looks like. And by the way, you can also reach us for a live consult. Just call the number on the screen and press 2. That often will ring to me, and we can talk a little bit more about your situation and details there. See you on the next video.